Why are we falling asleep? We have not wakened up to the current times. America, this is no game. There is no future for America without returning to the Most High. This is not about religion, for the Creator has no religion. Religion is man's way of ruling the populace. It is what causes our wars, prejudices, and cultural conflicts. Yes, we must believe in something, but what is it that we believe in? It cannot be mutation of or some Big Bang theory, because if it is, why are you here? What is the purpose? Humans are the only organisms on this planet that have no connection to the natural ecosystem or food chain of Earth. Earth does not need humans. So why are you here? And what is your supposed purpose? Is it merely to live without infringing on someone else's freedom? Is it just to maintain a oneness with self or nature? Listen, people, and listen carefully. The story of human creation and human purpose is of a truth which we only possess a little of. I pray to the Most High that He give me the ability to speak words of wisdom to you. I must start from the beginning, because if you do not know the beginning, then you cannot know the end. Isaiah 46:10. Those of you who have heard of the Sumerian tablets and heard of the story of Gilgamesh, the story of the flood, the creation as the ancient Sumerians describe it, I do not want to get into the Planet X story yet, as it complicates things. I want to stick with the creation story, as it compares well with the Bible stories, even helps explain some confusing events in Genesis. The Sumerian texts are not an early pagan religion or a mythical gods as some claim. The Bible speaks of creation through the Most High, that we were created in God's image, Genesis 1:26. If you notice, in the King James Version of the Bible and most Bibles, you see the word us being used in Genesis 1:26. Already we are told that there is a plural version of God, but do not worry, this can be explained through the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. People, you are being deceived. The Bible claims that God used the dust of the earth and His power to manifest Adam and Eve, breathing life into him, Genesis 2:7. So we are told a magical creation of humans. I do not doubt the Creator's power. However, the Sumerians tell of a very compelling alternative story that can be backed up. Remember, this story was written well before the Torah and before any form of modern technology. This civilization that lived at least over 4,000 years ago was the first civilization where we get our modern day writing, math, astrology, medicine, agriculture, and science. It wasn't Egypt, it was Sumeria. The Sumerian story claims that beings, the ones from heaven to earth, came, a race called the Anunnaki, which are referred to as in the Bible as the Anak, and their descendants the Nephilian. More on the Nephilian later. So we have the Bible concurring with the existence of these strange beings called the Anak. Anaks are mentioned throughout the Old Testament in Deuteronomy, Numbers, Judges, and Joshua. The most famous verses mentioning the Anak probably comes from Numbers 13:33 and Deuteronomy 9:2. So how do the Sumerians explain man's creation? The Sumerians tell of artificial insemination. Remember, these tablets are over 4,000 years old. Two female Anakis had DNA from a Homo erectus inserted into their eggs. And these are Homo erectus, these are these apes that scientists have been showing you that they've been discovering in archaeology, these kind of upright walking apes, I guess you can call them. The two Anaki females became pregnant with Adamu, or our Adam, and Tiamat, our Eve. The Sumerians also had a detailed picture of our solar system, and on one of these tablets with an extra 12th planet, supposedly Planet X or Nibiru, which is what the Sumerians called it. Did they know something we don't? Anyways, these Anunnaki created Adamu, or Adam, and Tiamat, or our Eve, to help them mine gold and produce crops on Earth. They made us in their own image. Sound familiar? This is good reason to why we have the plural mentions of God, or gods, appearing as more than one person, as He did to Abraham, as he appeared Abraham had three people appearing to him just before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 18:2. It also explains why Moses was the first Hebrew to see the Spirit of the Most High and know his identity, Exodus 3:13. More on that later, if I have time. I'm moving pretty quickly here, but I want to get to a more important issue. If you want to learn more about the creation story, there are great sources on the web that tell of the story. I'll also include links to descriptions to some sites in the description box below that tell the story pretty well. If I get enough requests, I will produce a story on the Sumerian creation, but for right now, I will assume that there's enough information out there. Now, why was now when I left off on my previous video, why was Abraham chosen? The Bible claims he was the only person at the time who lived according to how the Creator wanted humans to live by. In other words, he lived by the rule of law. He was a just man, is what they say. However, the Sumerians give us a much more interesting story. Recall that in Genesis there is a part about the sons of God coming down to earth to mate with the daughters of men. Genesis 6:2. We find in Genesis, Exodus, and Joshua that these descendants were known as the Nephilim, usually being giants, but not always, as some were just referred to as descendants of the Anak. Remember, giants could also mean giant thinkers, well-advanced people. Recall that the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were highly advanced cities filled with these Nephilims. The flood was actually sent down to earth to wipe out the Nephilims. However, the flood did not kill off all of these part Anaki, part human people. We have a confirmation of this when Joshua was leading the Israelites from Egypt back to the land of Canaan. Why is this important? The Sumerian story claims that Abraham was not chosen just because of his good nature, but because he was the only one remaining that was good from aboriginal descent from Adam and Eve, with no Anaki blood, other than the original Anaki blood that was used to create Adam and Eve. But in other words, there was no Anaki that came down from heaven to earth to mate with one of these aboriginal creatures, or aboriginal humans. In other words, Adam and Eve's strict descendants. Most would say, how is this possible? The Sumerians claim that Noah was part Anaki, that Cain was also part Anaki. But you say, how can Abraham not also be Anaki if his genealogy is supposedly from Noah? This is where the confusion sets in. If you look at the genealogy based upon the Bible, the tree is from Adam to Noah to Abraham. The Sumerians have a similar genealogy, but instead have Adam to Anaki Seth, to Anaki Enoch, to Anaki Noah, to Abraham. But this does not make any sense. How can Abraham be directly from Adam and Eve, be an original, if he descends from Anaki Noah? Something interesting is spoken of in the Bible. Abraham and the Israelites are also known by another very common name. That is not used much today. The word Hebrews. The word Hebrews actually comes from Abraham's great-great-great-great-grandfather, Eber. The word Hebrew actually is a very debated word on its meaning. However, we do not know that the ancient Israelites were always known to their neighbors as Hebrews and not Jews or Israelites. In other words, their most common name was always the Hebrews, never the Jews or Israelites. The word Hebrew was normally meant to refer to a nomadic people always on the move, a simple people. But why start the lineage from Eber and not Noah or Shem? Strong's dictionary states that the word Hebrew means descendant of Eber. Stay with me now. If we look at the Hebrew word for Eber being Ibri, we see that there is an I at the end of the name. In Hebrew, that I at the end of the name shows where the person is a native from. So Eber is a native of Eber, which means to cross. And we know that Nibiru, planet X, is known to the Sumerians as the crossing planet, or the crossing place. This does not mean that Abraham and the Israelites are from Nibiru or part Anaki. Here's where things start to make more sense. The word Eber also refers to a city in Sumeria called Nippur, or Nibiru. Why would the Anaki name a city after their planet? Because when the Anaki first came here, they established a colony or station which we find in Sumerian texts known as the Garden of Eden. It was this garden that the Anakis grew their food and lived. It was also the place where Adam and Eve were created, and hence these were the first aboriginals lived. So to say Abraham is Hebrew is to say he is a native of the Garden of Eve, a strict descendant of Adam and Eve. This would make Abraham an original, or an aboriginal. But what still does not get answered is who Eber descended from. That I do not know, and I'm still searching for. One thing that needs to be clear is that the Bible is a man-written document with some things of truth and some of man. It does not hold the entire story. We know that everything was not written in the book. We know that things were added to it, like the Lord's Prayer in Matthew. But the point of this video is not to debate the Bible, but to search for the truth. And I hope the truth comes soon.